Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for coming today. Mr. Clem, during a visit with Border Patrol agents last year in Yuma, I reminded them Congress has no power to enforce the law. Our role is to write the laws, and I asked them what laws they needed us to write to be able to better do their jobs. And they answered unanimously, we don't need new laws, we need to enforce the laws we already have. Obviously, we can and we have written laws to make it easier for future presidents to secure the border, as Donald Trump did, make it harder for them to open the border, as Biden has done. But is this still mainly a question of enforcement?
Yes, sir, I would agree with that. The laws in the books that have been written over the last decades allow us to do our job. It is the policy and the direction coming out of the executive branch that directs how we're going to do things. 8 U.S.C. 1325 clearly says if you cross the border outside of a port of entry, it is against the law, regardless of your intent. And so, yeah, I don't believe we need new laws. I think we just need new leadership and direction to encourage us to continue to enforce the laws.
Now, as I recall, on Inauguration Day, our borders were pretty much secure. The Remain in Mexico policy of the Trump administration had slowed phony asylum claims to a trickle. The border wall was nearing completion. We were actually enforcing court-ordered deportations, returning illegals to their own communities, where word got out very quickly it's not worth paying the cartels thousands of dollars because you're just going to end up back here. The laws didn't change on Inauguration Day. The presidency did. And on that first day, Joe Biden rescinded the executive orders that Trump had issued to enforce our laws. What differences did you see on the ground between the days before the inauguration and the days we're seeing today?
I can tell you that in October of 2020, Yuma sector averaged, where I was going to be, 25 arrests a day. It went up in November to 34 a day, up to about 54 a day in December, 119 in January, and by May of 2021, it went up to over 500 a day. And as I mentioned in my opening statement, we went from 8,800 arrests in 2020 in Yuma to 114,000 in 21 to 312,000 in 22. So that is a direct result of the executive orders that pretty much undermined and undid everything that we had worked towards over a culmination of several years.
And on the ground, as a law enforcement officer, what change did you have in the orders you received from on high when the administration changed?
It wasn't so much of any direct orders to stop doing it or do anything. It was just the fact that the floodgates had been opened. When you are dealing with 1,000 arrests a day and you only have a couple hundred Border Patrol agents working in a 24-hour cycle, it quickly adds up and it ties our hands. Our agents were pretty much relegated to transportation and processing and getting people processed and out as quickly as possible. That was really much the kind of the direction we were heading.
Current law requires that asylum claims be detained until their claims resolved. The Trump administration implemented the Remain in Mexico policy and a Safe Third Countries policy that allowed claimants to remain free in those countries while their claims were being heard. What was the effect of this policy on the number of illegals claiming asylum that you encountered, and was the rescinding of this policy by Biden largely responsible for the influx that you just described?
Yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that the rescission of the Migrant Protection Protocol led to the mass incursions we started seeing. I want to make something very clear. Majority, and I would say an overwhelming majority, I don't recall people in my custody actually seeking asylum. It was through the removal process, while we were processing them, did they claim fear, which offers them an asylum hearing.
And they're all trained to do
Right,
that.
they're trained. These are all folks that are not seeking asylum. They are using it as a defense. But when you end the Migrant Protection Protocol, which basically was closing the loopholes, that word got out so quickly that if you make it, you get to stay, and ultimately put us back in a catch and release mindset.
Mr. Karchner, what have you seen in Cochise County with respect to criminal cartels and affiliated gangs? Are they now operating here in American communities? And what does that mean for the safety of our neighborhoods?
As far as the the criminal cartels, as in my statement, the criminal cartel or the Mexican cartels control the border, and they control that from both sides of the line.
Have they now permeated into our country?
The majority of what I've seen through investigations and everything else, there are players within the Phoenix area, within the Tucson area. That's where the coordination for these load drivers comes from, is from people that are already in the U.S. Not
Well, a local law enforcement in my community in California told me of one of the nearby rural towns that became a place where MS-13 brought its victims from Los Angeles to murder. And there are absolutely gruesome stories of faces being carved off, of fingers severed digit by digit. Can we expect this sort of violence to proliferate here as MS-13 and other violent gangs establish stronger footholds in our communities?
I can speak to what I've seen here in Cochise County, and Cochise County is not where people are staying. The cartels do operate there, but we're simply a pass-through. Further out in the country, in Ohio, in California, in New York, that's where I believe that you're going to see probably some of that cartel.
And that's why Border Patrol agents have been warning us for years to warn our communities outside of the international boundary that every community is becoming a border town.